is up, everybody? We are here with a brand new spin-off show from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. It's like having that show that you're so used to seeing, and then you have that spin-off series, which ends up doing its own thing and being magical, hopefully, as well. Brendan Murphy is here with me. We are both Marywood alum, and we're both alum of MU Courtside as well. My baby from back in 2003. This man helped raise Mr. MU Courtside, Mr. Mrs., whatever you want to call it. MU Courtside, this beautiful kid has continued to grow. Brendan Murphy is special to me in the sense that he asked me to come back. He's special to me in how he's treated me. And so I wanted to give him an opportunity to work here with Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and I'm thankful that he said yes. So we are here today in an all-new spin-off show from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora that's under the Dan Tortora Broadcast Media family, and it's called DT and Murphy Make the Picks. DT and Murphy. So Mr. Brendan Murphy, DT and Murphy, this is the inaugural show. How do you feel, brother?
Feels pretty good. I'm really excited. This is something that, I've always wanted to get into. This field is my dream job. So, getting ready to go. For me especially, you get to watch baseball all day, considering there's 8 baseball games today, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But it's going to be really cool to make some picks, and some that I'm sure we're going to disagree on a bit, but others I'm sure we'll be able to talk about.
Yeah, so DT and Murphy make the picks. You're watching this here on Facebook Live, facebook.com/live-now-DT. You'll see this here, and of course, you'll be able to see it on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt as well. So we're going to make our NFL picks for Week 4. We're going to make our picks for Week 5 of college football. Every single game in college football, we're going to do all of them. I'm talking Campbell, Wake Forest. Like Campbell's soup up against Wake Forest. Can Wake finally get a win over the best tomato soup that some people have had? We're going to talk about Southern Miss in North Texas. We're going to have the Texas A&M and Alabama, North Carolina, Boston College, Florida and South Carolina, and so on and so forth. We will pick the field for Major League Baseball, and we will tell you who we believe is going to win the NBA Finals in the NBA restart bubble. So a lot of great stuff coming up. We're going to start in the NFL. So, Mr. Murphy, I'll hand it to you first. Denver at the New York Jets. Oh, my Lord, these Jets.
Can we not do this game? Can we not? Can we just say Broncos and move on?
Here's...
you know me. I can go on about how bad the Jets are for hours, but I'm not going to make people be subjected to that kind of me ranting about how bad the Jets are. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
This
Broncos.
is the crazy thing about the Jets. The Giants are so bad, but I think the Jets are worse. Like in my preseason power rankings that I've never done on Wake Up Call, Papa Joe and I did the preseason power rankings 1 through 32. I put the Jets at 32. I think I put the Giants at 29. So, just not a great place. The Jets are just awful. The Giants don't have Saquon Barkley. They lose to San Francisco's B team with San Fran coming from the West Coast. They lose 36. It was such almost 40 points scored on them. 9 points for the Giants. I know we have to talk a little bit about this, and I know that we're both picking Denver, but oh my good Lord, is there any good team in MetLife? The field at MetLife isn't safe. The Jets aren't good. The Giants aren't good. They're not even New York teams. They play in New Jersey.
Is Rutgers going to play there? I don't even know if they're any better. Rutgers isn't exactly good.
Rutgers would be the best team at MetLife if they moved to MetLife, which is crazy. They probably beat the Giants and the Jets right now, and Rutgers is in the basement of the Big Ten, and they've been there since they joined the Big Ten. So this is just a crazy game. So, yeah, we can stop the bleeding and pick Denver on the road for Thursday Night Football. Indianapolis, Chicago, who do you got?
Just watching the Colts against the Jets this week, Phillip Rivers is not the same player he was 10 years ago. They looked okay. They put up 36 points on the Jets. Anybody could put up 30 points on that defense. I would not be surprised if Denver does that to the Jets this week. But Chicago is 3-0 with a quarterback controversy, and you don't see that too often.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Nick Foles. I am on record of saying that the Eagles should have went with Foles rather than Carson Wentz. I mean, look how that's going right now. I'm going to pick Chicago, and I think it's going to be a 2-score game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chicago as well in this game. I don't have any doubt that Chicago's going to get it done. They've had 2 comebacks this season. They figured out a way against Detroit. I think they were down 24-6 or 23-6, and so they found a way to come back in that game. They found a way to outlast Atlanta, who has no defense but has a good amount of offense. So, Chicago has looked pretty darn good to me. I knew Nick Foles would take over eventually, and the fact that it's this early, kind of interesting here. Anthony Miller's shown up from Memphis, so a shout-out to him for that. I don't believe in the Colts and what they put forward this season. Chicago's at home. I think that gives them a little bit of an edge at Soldier Field. Chicago Bears, the most surprising 3-0 team, I think is now going to be 4-0. Jacksonville at Cincinnati. We have seen Joe Burrow almost get there. He gave everything he could against the Cleveland Browns. They lost 35-30. He gives everything he can in the Philadelphia game. They tie at 23 on the road. Is this the game that Joe Burrow finally gets a victory?
Joe Burrow will pick up his first win in the NFL over the Jaguars. I'm sorry, but the Jags have looked pretty bad since week 1. They looked great in week 1 against the Colts. And I don't know what's going on with them. DJ Chark's hurt, so that hurts. And Gardner Minshew hasn't played as well as he did in week 1. But when you look at the Bengals, Joe Burrow, he's got some weapons. Like, it's a different story for Joe Burrow going in there versus somebody like when Baker Mayfield went into Cleveland. Like, his first year, Baker Mayfield didn't have any weapons. Joe Burrow has some weapons this year. And this Bengals team, well, don't get me wrong, they're not making the playoffs. But they're going to sneak around and win some games. I mean, I could see them winning 6 or 7 games this year, and I think this is when they're going to get win number 1.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow, he's been knocking at the door, and the defense hasn't given him much of anything. And I think he's done enough in the first 3 weeks to earn a victory. So I do think he's going to get one in this game. I'm picking Cincinnati as well at home. If Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to put a clinic on in Jacksonville, as I said before, if the lumberjack is going to put the wood and the axe down to come out and teach the Jacksonville Jaguars a lesson. I mean, Paul Bunyan beats you. You got to feel like garbage on the football field. So I think that if Paul Bunyan can do it, then Joe Burrow can do it. I believe he will. I think Cincinnati gets a win. Love seeing T. Higgins of Clemson with Joe Burrow of LSU. T. Higgins in week number 3 gets his first career NFL touchdown and second career NFL touchdown. And I picked him up in fantasy. So thank you to T. Higgins for that. I got Cincinnati in this game. We're going to stay with the AFC North. Cleveland is going into Dallas to play one of the teams in the worst division in the NFL. The NFC East does not have a team with a winning record. And the number 1 team in the NFC East does not even have a name in Washington football team. It's a big giant joke, yet it's reality. Washington, no name, 1-2, leads the division. What do you think about Cleveland at Dallas?
Well, I mean, you could say what you want about the Browns and how they're a dysfunctional organization and all that stuff, but got to give credit where credit's due. They're a team that's starting to slowly come into their own this year, and I like what that team's been doing. Baker Mayfield seems like he's starting to get a lot more comfortable in that offense. He's got a couple of really good receivers to throw to with OBJ and Jarvis Landry. They have a solid rushing game between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. They look really good. I'm taking the Browns. I think the Cowboys are way overrated. I mean, they're probably still the best team in the NFC East, but I don't see him finishing above 500 this year. Dak stinks. He's not worth the money. I'm taking the Browns.
The crazy thing about, I mean, credit to you for doing what you want to do in this one. I cannot agree with you. I knew you were going to take the Browns. I don't know why. I knew you were, but I'm taking the Cowboys at home. Do I think the Browns can go in here and win the game? Yes. If they do that, does that add insult to injury of the NFC West? Absolutely. And it takes a team that I think, going into the season was a potential Super Bowl caliber team. It really makes Dallas look bad. I have them winning this game. They played some good games. They got to finish. They had to finish against Seattle. They didn't do that. I think they're going to finish in this game, but I think they're going to have to score a lot. This might be in the 30s, if not the deep 20s, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are obviously worth the play in fantasy for this one. I'm going to take Dallas, but this is like my stomach hurt. This is kind of like that feeling when your stomach is churning a little bit and you're thinking, am I going to make it to the bathroom on time? That's what Cleveland and Dallas feels like to me, but I'm going to pick Dallas.
I mean, keep in mind, Dallas's only win is a comeback win against the Falcons, and we all know what happens to the Falcons with a lead in the fourth quarter. They blow it.
And their defense is atrocious.
That too.
New Orleans at Detroit.
This is a tough one. I mean, the Saints have really been underwhelming this year. I mean, they're missing Michael Thomas, so that doesn't help. But, I mean, at the same time, you got a Detroit Lions team who's got questions in the rushing game. They don't know what they want to do, whether they want to go with the veterans or DeAndre Swift, the highly touted rookie from Georgia. I don't know. I think this is a tough one. My gut's telling me the Saints, and I don't want to stray away from that. I think it's hard to pick against them because they're a really good team even without Michael Thomas. As poorly as Drew Brees has played to start the season, I think it's got to turn around at some point. But they've also had a somewhat brutal schedule to start the year. But I'm going with the Saints.
I will not go with the Saints. I'm actually picking Detroit in this game. I think Adrian Peterson is going to do enough. I'm really pissed off that they're not using DeAndre Swift. And I know that people are starting to drop him. I dropped him in one of my leagues in fantasy. But I don't know. Adrian Peterson, what he's been able to do. I got a feeling about Detroit because last week in my mind I said they're going to Arizona. They shouldn't win. But there's a good chance that they probably will shock the world. I picked Arizona. And I was like, but I got a feeling. And I'm not going to go against it now. I'm going to pick Detroit in this game to win it. Seattle at Miami. What do you have for this?
That's one I was actually just looking at. And before I make my pick, I got probably the best waiver wire pickup of the week in our Marywood League with Myles Gaskin. I am thrilled that I was able to pick him up because I was the unfortunate victim to losing Saquon Barkley. And Josh Jacobs was a little underwhelming last week. And I don't have a second running back. Yeah. I mean, I'm loaded at receiver, but I can't make a trade for a running back. So that's, if any of you guys from the Marywood League are watching this right now, hit me up. I got plenty of receivers to offer. I need a running back. But I don't think this one's that hard. I mean, you got to go with Seattle. I mean, Russell Wilson's been otherworldly this year. DK Metcalf's been outstanding as basically his top option at receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not much else to say. Seahawks, and pretty handily as well.
Yeah, I got the Seahawks in this game. I mean, they look beautiful. Tyler Lockett has definitely caught my attention. I wasn't really sold on him. I like what I'm seeing from him right now. For every pass that he sends, that Russell Wilson sends to DK Metcalf, he's sending 3 or 4 more to Tyler Lockett. So there's a lot of good to be had there. I think that's awesome. Chris Carson is injured. Travis Homer might have to come out there from Miami, who I covered for the Hurricanes, might have to do some work. But I got Seattle. I like the way they play. They're looking like a team that could make it to the Super Bowl, and I got a feeling about them right now, so I'm going to pick them in this one. The Chargers at Tampa. We have Justin Herbert is playing again because Tyrod Taylor continues to be injured. So Herbert, who I thought would be one of the last quarterbacks of note drafted in the 2020 NFL draft that we would see, we're seeing him a lot earlier due to an injury to Tyrod Taylor. He hasn't been bad. He's kept the games close. I don't think that he, even though they haven't gotten wins in his 2 games that he's played in, I still think that there is something to be said about the fact that he's a rookie, not really making too many mistakes. And he had to throw a lot of balls this last week in week 3, and he only threw 1 pick, and I think he threw like 49 times, which was crazy. So, what are your thoughts on the Chargers? Do they have any shot against Tampa and Tom Brady?
I mean, hey, give Justin Herbert credit. He almost single-handedly beat the Chiefs. That was an outstanding game that he played in his debut.
Yeah.
But also, how about the circumstances behind him coming in? The trainer or the doctor or whatever punctures Tyrod Taylor's lung with a needle, trying to give him a painkiller. I mean, I've never seen that before. I mean, that's something out of a. I don't even want to know. I feel so bad for Tyrod Taylor because he's gotten the bad end of the stick from so many quarterbacks. I mean, this is now the fourth quarterback's career. I mean, realistically third, but I mean, I'm counting Nathan Peterman in there because everybody loves how bad Nathan Peterman is. But he launched Baker Mayfield's career. He's launching Justin Herbert's career. And he started, where he drafted by? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Who are you saying that?
Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod
drawing a blank on where he got drafted.
Virginia Tech. I want to say it was Virginia Tech. I think it was Virginia. Hold on, pardon me on this. I might be off.
That is where he went to school. I'm trying to. Who did he get? Oh, Baltimore.
Who drafted him? Oh,
yeah, he was the backup for Joe Flacco. Yeah, he was the backup for Joe Flacco during our Super Bowl year, so he got a ring. But I mean, this is going to be an entertaining game. This is one that, and if it's on in my area, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to pick against Tom Brady. I've learned very, very hard that if you bet against Tom Brady, it doesn't end well for you. So I'm going to take Brady and the Bucs. I mean, they haven't looked great. Brady has definitely regressed, but he's still the greatest quarterback to ever play football. Give me the Bucs. I think it's a close game, but I'm going to take the Bucs.
I'm going to take the Bucs in this game as well. Tom Brady getting me over 40 points in fantasy in Week 3. Rob Gronkowski is starting to get involved more in the offense. O.J. Howard is involved in that. Mike Evans has obviously, he has to step up with Chris Godwin injured this week. But Leonard Fournette doing his thing and having some good initial moments here in the first few weeks. Had a really bad debut, 5 carries for 5 yards, and then had a really good day in fantasy in week number 2. I got to pick Tampa in this one. I think the Chargers are going to give them a fight. It's a game that I have circled that I want to watch, but ultimately I'm going to give it to Tampa, and it helps with them being at home. Baltimore is not far away from the Washington football team because in Baltimore, I've driven through. They're very close to each other. One of them has a name. One of them does not. One of them is behind the Steelers. One of them is leading the division, as I said, without a winning record. Lamar Jackson is pissed after they lose to the Chiefs 34-20 at home. They don't have to go that far from home. This is a game where I don't know if I'd ever want to play Lamar Jackson, but this is a game where I would not want to be on the other side of him. He wants to make a statement, and I think he will. Now, if Dallas loses, you're going to have a 1-3 and a 1-3 again with Washington and Dallas leading the NFC East. I don't see Baltimore in any way, shape, or form losing this game, especially with Lamar Jackson probably going to put 5 to 6 touchdowns out on you because he is pissed. What do you have for this?
This one you could toss in the same category as Jets Broncos. This really isn't much of a question. It's the Ravens. I mean, they lost to a team that's just flat out better than them. The Chiefs are the best team in football, and it's honestly not that close.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Ravens, I can't be too upset about losing that game. Lamar's going to go out. He's going to ball out like he always does, and they're going to win by at least 2 scores, maybe even 3.
Yeah, we're picking Baltimore in that one. Next one, Arizona at Carolina. Arizona just lost to Detroit. Carolina doing some good things, but they're playing without Christian McCaffrey. What do you have for this?
Well, I mean, the Panthers haven't looked that great with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, and it's a shame because Teddy Bridgewater was a guy that I was expecting to go in there and play pretty well, and he's been a little underwhelming so far. Kyler Murray's been really good in his sophomore season. I've always had faith in him. I thought he was going to be a great baseball player until he won the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's a really good football player too. I think the Cardinals have looked really good. They're really gelling well with their team, and I got the Cardinals. I think it's close. I think Teddy keeps his team in the game, but I think I'm taking the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm taking the Cardinals in this one as well. This is worth noting. Teddy Bridgewater in 3 games as the starter for Carolina, he had a 64.7% completion percentage in game number 1. In game number 2, 78.6% completion percentage, throwing 42 passes. In game number 3, a win over the Chargers on the road, he had a 78.6 completion percentage again, throwing almost 30 passes with 28. So 28 pass attempts, almost 79% completion percentage, 42 pass attempts, 78.6% again. I mean, we're looking at a guy who's almost 80% in completions for the last 2 weeks when he's throwing 28 or more passes. 42 passes in a game is huge. So those are great numbers for any quarterback, and probably right there at the top with anybody this season. But the issue is scoring. In 3 weeks, he has 2 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So as good as his completions are, they're not getting down the field, and they're not getting into the end zone. And that is going to be much more of an issue without Christian McCaffrey. Not that Mike Davis isn't good, but Christian McCaffrey really good. You look at a guy, 80% completion percentage, but he's not scoring the ball. It doesn't matter anything unless you can get into that end zone and do a little dance and, make a little love, get down tonight, whatever you want to call it. If you're not doing that in Carolina and on the road, then there's some issues here. Shout out to Teddy Bridgewater for looking good in the passing game, but if you're not getting into the end zone, it's all for naught. So I'm going with Arizona in this matchup. Kyler Murray looking fantastic. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, man, this man was arguably the best wide receiver in the country in Houston. Now he's gone to Arizona, and he continues to impress with 100-yard-plus games. DeAndre's just a fantastic player, and Houston is reeling from losing him, which brings me into Houston. Minnesota at Houston. People are ready to throw the kitchen sink at Houston. They're ready to dig a grave of 6 or 7 feet even and toss them in there. But Houston had to play Baltimore, and they had to play Kansas City in the first 3 weeks. Does Houston have a shot in this one? Are people getting too nervous too early, or is Minnesota going to win?
People forget about that. Houston had a brutal first 3 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, has Deshaun Watson struggled? Yes. I mean, listening to Fantasy Football earlier today, they were talking about buy low candidates, and Deshaun Watson was one of them. Everybody was saying, if you can get Deshaun Watson for cheap, go get him. Because, I mean, he's got the brutal part of the schedule already out of the way. And this is not unlike the Texans. They've started rough before and then went on a run where they won 8 or 9 games in a row. So I'm going to go with the Texans. I think the Vikings have really kind of struggled. I don't think Kirk Cousins is the guy for them. He's kind of lost without Stephon Diggs in his receiving corps. But I think, as is Deshaun Watson a little bit, having lost DeAndre Hopkins. But DeAndre Hopkins just makes guys better. I mean, you see that in Arizona with Kyler Murray. He's just making them better. But I like Houston here. I don't really think it's probably at least 7 points. Wouldn't be surprised if it's more.
Yeah, I got to go with Houston in this game as well. Anybody that thinks that Deshaun Watson is not that great or DeAndre Hopkins is not that great is insane. I know they're not together anymore. Both of them very talented. Deshaun Watson in the top 5 going into the season when I had predicted passers for fantasy. So I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson. Houston is reeling, or Minnesota, is reeling right now. And I don't see a lot of good in Minnesota happening. Outside of Dalvin Cook in some moments, I'm not liking what I see from Minnesota, and they're in trouble because I think Detroit potentially could get better. Chicago has gotten better, and Green Bay is just going off with Aaron Rodgers and company. The New York Giants at the LA Rams. If you're the Giants, I think that you potentially ask the NFL if you can just go on a beach and let the season play out. It's kind of like the Giants are sending in a paper ballot. It's not going to get counted for weeks, maybe months. Nobody's going to know what they're voting for, but they'll say that they were there. I mean, that's what I see when I see the Giants. I don't know how Giants fans are going to watch the rest of this season knowing that they have 13 more games to watch because there's no way that this team's making the playoffs. Giants at Rams, what do you have?
Well, for starters, I took the Rams in my survivor pool this week, so obviously I'm going to say the Rams. But to be perfectly honest, having watched 2 out of the 3 Giants games, I don't think they're as bad as people are making them out to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're not a good football team. Their offensive line's in pieces. Daniel Jones has struggled. the defense isn't good, etc. But I don't think that team is as bad as people are saying. I do think they're going to win some games this year. And to be honest, losing Saquon hurts them because if they didn't lose Saquon, I would have expected this team to win at least 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate that they would maybe win. I think I had them winning like 3 to 4 games if they had Saquon, maybe 4 games safely. I don't know. I don't know what the Giants are going to do moving forward. I didn't like the receiving core last year, the year before, or now. I like Daniel Jones, but he doesn't have Saquon anymore. I'm going with the Rams. I don't have to say too much about it. And the Rams are going to be happy because they're not playing Buffalo, which is an actual New York, and they left Gabriel Davis of UCF wide open. New England at Kansas City. I think this game is going to be better than people give it credit for. I think it's going to be closer than people give it credit for. I can't believe that people aren't respecting Cam Newton, but Kansas City's Kansas City. What do you have for this one?
Well, people don't respect Cam Newton. They didn't draft him in fantasy, and I'm the beneficiary of that. So I screwed up taking Carson Wentz. I'm very happy to take Cam Newton.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a really good game. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the game of the week on CBS. And this is the type of game that could go either way. I mean, the Chiefs are just, their offense is absolutely loaded between Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, and Patrick Mahomes. And then you can't even forget about the backfield with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, this team's absolutely stacked. But if you look at the same time, while nowhere near as good as it was last year with the guys that have opted out, the Patriots defense is still good. So that's a team that I think could give the Chiefs trouble. I mean, I do still think the Chiefs are going to win, but I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people expect. I think this could come down to 3 or 4 points, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I'm going with Kansas City in this one. I have to take Kansas City. To me, they're going to edge it out, but I think this is going to be a good game. This might actually make some people look to the sideline and go, "Is Tom Brady back?" Because it's one of those games that's going to feel close, and it's going to be close. And I think it's going to show what Bill Belichick is capable of, but I got to take Kansas City in this matchup. Buffalo at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders raided Carolina in their first game as Las Vegas. They went home and they won in their spaceship. Now they're back in the spaceship, but they have to play Josh Allen. Quarterback at Buffalo history had been forever since a quarterback had gotten to 300 passing yards in a game. He got 300 in week 1, then he got 400, then he got 300 again. The man got to, hey, this is the first time in forever that this has happened, and now he's done it 3 weeks in a row. He seems to be virtually unstoppable. What's Buffalo going to do in this one?
I think Buffalo's going to win. I'm not a huge fan of the Raiders, but if you look at Josh Allen, he has made some mistakes. And if you look back at that week 1 game against the Jets, the Bills did pretty much everything in their power to give that game away.
Yeah.
And because the Jets are so bad, they still won. But realistically, Josh Allen has been really good, but has made some mistakes that have kind of been covered up by the team being so good. And I think that's something you need with a young quarterback. And this is only his 3rd season, so he's gonna struggle at times.
Yeah.
But you have plenty of room for that. He's been great with his legs. He's showing off the arm like he always has, like he did at Wyoming. He's outstanding. I think he's going to overall be the best pure quarterback out of that draft class. I mean, Lamar. I wouldn't call Lamar a pure quarterback. I mean, he's a scrambler. He's essentially Michael Vick, essentially. So I think if you're looking in terms of a pure quarterback, I think Josh Allen will be the best in that class. I like the Raiders. I like what they've done. I'd like Josh Jacobs to get me some points in fantasy, but we got to take the Bills.
Yeah, I got to take the Bills in this one as well. Buffalo's just looking really good. I'm not shocked that they're 3-0 at this point. I think they're one of the arguably strongest 3-0 teams in the NFL. So I don't have too much worry about. I mean, a little bit of concern that they're on the road, a little bit of concern that they're going to the spaceship, but ultimately I'm going to pick Buffalo to come away with the victory. Philadelphia at San Francisco. This is the Sunday night game. I think that NBC's going, can we talk to somebody about that? Can we play 90 Day Fiance, or can we borrow Big Brother from CBS for the night? I don't know. I mean, I'll be watching Big Brother. Philadelphia at San Francisco. What do you have for this?
Can they just switch the Patriots and Chiefs with this game? I mean, this game's going to be a laugher. I mean, the Eagles are not good this year. I mean, if they couldn't beat the Bengals, I don't know who in the world they're going to beat. Carson Wentz has been awful this year.
Yeah.
They've been throwing to Dallas Goedert more than Zach Ertz,
and now he's hurt.
I don't know why, and now he's hurt. So obviously they're going to have to start throwing Ertz again, which might help them, but I think the only way the Eagles are going to be good in the long run is if Carson Wentz just bites the bullet and runs the RPO, like pretty much every other quarterback in the NFL. Now, on the other side, the Niners are hurt. I mean, Mostert might come back this week. We still don't know with his injury. Jimmy Garoppolo might still be a week or two away. Nick Bosa's out for the year. Solomon Thomas is out for the year. So they're in pieces.
George Kittle may play.
George Kittle, yeah. That's another one that's up in the air. But
yeah,
I think the Eagles are just not a good football team, and the Niners reserves are going to be good enough to beat them. I mean, I don't really think the Eagles are that much better than the Giants. So if the Giants got embarrassed by the Niners last week, I can see the Niners doing somewhat of a similar thing to the Eagles. Maybe not quite to the same extent, but I do think that one's going to be a bit of a laugher. It's going to be a 2-score game.
36-9, the Niners B team defeats the Giants. They're going to play the NFC East again, and they're going to play that game at home, and they're going to beat Philly because San Francisco's reserves are better than your starters. So, I mean, it's crazy to think no Bosa, maybe no Kittle, maybe no Raheem Mostert, maybe he'll play, maybe no Jimmy G. It's insane, but that's how bad the NFC East is in San Francisco. Hopefully these guys will get on the mend and get back to it. I'm picking San Fran. Monday Night Football, Atlanta at Green Bay. Two fantastic, I mean, this season, fantastic. I think Matt Ryan, I said this could be a resurgent year for him. The points could start coming back. The offense can start looking good, but I don't trust the defense at all. The offense has proven me right. The defense has proven me right. I really, really, really like Green Bay. For everybody that drafted Aaron Rodgers in the 7th round, 8th round, he's washed up. He's not that good. I don't really think he's going to get a lot of fantasy points. I don't know what game they're watching. I picked up Alan Lazard because Devontae Adams was out. And Alan Lazard, I said, listen, next man up. He loves Alan Lazard. He was a guy on the practice squad for Jacksonville. He comes into Green Bay after Aaron Rodgers a couple years ago had spoken about his receivers besides Devontae and was like, hey, these guys need to do better. He likes Allen. He goes from 5th on the depth chart to number 2. Last week he becomes number 1. And if you're following the bouncing fantasy ball, you already knew that Alan Lazard was going to get it done. But thank you to the people that didn't pay attention because I got to pick him up, and he went buck wild. My grandfather on my mom's side is a Green Bay fan up in heaven, and his favorite number is 13. Alan Lazard, Green Bay, number 13. I made the move. Pops and I got some good points off of that. I'm feeling good about Green Bay. Is there any shot that Atlanta's non-defensive team could score 60 and hope to God that they win?
This is my hot take of the week.
Yeah.
Atlanta has the lead by 2 scores in the 4th quarter, and they blow it.
Okay.
Packers are going to win. I don't actually think that's going to happen. I honestly think the Packers are going to blow them out. But, I mean, hey, that would be really funny to see.
It would be insane. I'm going to go with Green Bay as well, obviously. And then the game that was postponed from Sunday, October 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time due to Corona. First game in 4 weeks that has been postponed due to COVID-19 is looking to be played on Monday or Tuesday. Pittsburgh at Tennessee. What do you have for this one?
It's going to be weird because you're going to have a game that was going to be a really good game on Sunday, and now the Titans have lost some guys to COVID, and it's been a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers look really good with Big Ben back at quarterback. I mean, their running back tandem between James Conner and Benny Snell is looking really good. He's doing well with his receivers. Juju's playing well. He's got solid options all over the field. The defense, how nobody took the Steelers defense in the middle of our draft. Like, I'm sitting on the draft board, 5 defenses are off the board, and the Steelers are still there. Yeah. Why they were still there, I have no idea. But, I mean, at the same time, you look at the Titans, and that's a good football team. I mean, a scrappy bunch of players. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, who runs the ball down your throat. You got Ryan Tannehill, who's been a really good quarterback ever since he left the craziness of Adam Gase, who doesn't belong as a head coach in the NFL. But that's a story for another day. And their defense is solid. I think this could have been the best game of the week.
Yeah.
I think if they do play Tuesday, that would be really interesting because I don't think there's ever been an NFL game on a Tuesday night. But I like the Steelers. I think it'll be a close game. I hope their defense can get some points for me, but I definitely like the Steelers in this one.
In DT and Murphy make the picks, we have only disagreed on 3 games, this being the third one of week number 4 in the NFL. I'm going with Tennessee at home. I'm picking them. I know Pittsburgh's got talent, but there's something about Tennessee. Both of these teams are 3-0. Somebody's going to be 4-0 after this game. I'm picking Tennessee at home. Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, those names are not on the COVID-19 list. Neither is Corey Davis, who stepped up a little bit here, and Jonnu Smith. So I think they'll do enough offensively. And I love the defense. My guy from Boston College that I covered in his recruitment, Mr. Harold Landry, really proud of the young man. He came on the show after he got drafted to Tennessee. Lots of good stuff coming from them. I'm going to pick Tennessee. So the only games we differed in for the NFL Week 4, you chose Cleveland, I chose Dallas at Dallas. You chose New Orleans, I chose Detroit at Detroit. And you chose Pitt, I chose Tennessee at Tennessee. So I chose the home teams, you chose the away teams in those 3 games, and that's where we sit with those. Now, Mr. Murphy and I are going to pick Week 5 of college football, and probably no other show in America, let alone the world, is going to pick every single game. Now, we're going to run through these a little bit quicker because we're picking everybody from everywhere, teams you didn't even know about. But, Brendan, we're going to make history with DT and Murphy make the picks inside of Dan Tortora Broadcast Media because we are about to throw every single game at you. Campbell Soup at Wake Forest. What do you have for Campbell? They only had a soccer team a few years back, just soccer, nothing else. They got a football team now. They're going to Wake Forest. Wake Forest has not won a game. Who do you have in this one?
Well, I actually have a buddy of mine who goes to Campbell and plays baseball there, and he actually led junior college in home runs a couple of years ago. Named CJ Pachaka, really, really good kid, friend of mine, great player. And for his sake, I'm going to take Campbell simply because of that. Do I think they're going to win? Probably not, considering they're going up against Wake Forest. But I'm going to go a little homer, and I'll take Campbell.
You'll probably be the only person that ever takes Campbell on this show. I'm going to go with Wake Forest. Wake Forest, I believe I picked them to be 15 out of 15 in the ACC. They have not disappointed up to this point in the season. They have played absolutely terrible. Their game in Notre Dame got moved to December 12th. They're 0-2 in their other 2 games. They just don't look good by any stretch of the imagination. However, they're at home, and I think they're going to get a victory over Campbell. If they don't, then, Lord help them. Wake Forest got to get it done. Louisiana Tech at BYU. BYU ranked in the nation's top 25. They are an independent school. Even though some people think they're in the Mountain West, they are not. They're independent for now. What do you have for BYU and Louisiana Tech?
BYU. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to be honest. I don't know much about either one of these teams. I know BYU's ranked. They're a solid team. I take BYU.
Fair enough. Then next, I'm going to take BYU as well. Next one we got up, this team scored 51 points in their opening week. The SEC came into college football this past week on September 26th. You're pointing to the Tim Tebow Gator jersey. My Papa Joe is a Gator through and through. South Carolina is going into Florida to play the Gators, a team that I said when Dan Mullen came in, I said, listen, let me be real with you here. I said, I give him a year and I want to see what it looks like. Within a couple seasons, 2-3 years that he's been there, this team's going to be a national championship contender in the fact that I think they're going to make the college football playoff. This could be the year they make the college football playoff. If somehow they don't, I'd put them in there next year. What do you have for this?
Well, watching LSU and Georgia struggle last week makes me feel pretty good, considering how good Florida looked this week. I didn't even have to watch the whole game. I had to struggle for the television with my dad downstairs. He didn't want to let me watch the game, but I finally got through to him. I watched the game downstairs, and the boys put up 51 points. Kyle Trask, doing his thing, National Player of the Week. Kyle Pitts, a guy who could easily run into being a first-round pick as a tight end in the NFL, and he can really honestly be a receiver in the NFL with how skilled he is, but he really was conscious with working on his blocking in the offseason because he didn't qualify for the tight end award last year because he didn't line up to block him as much. He was lining up as a receiver. But that team is really good. They lost some pieces, but I like Malik Davis and Pierce in the backfield. I think it's going to be really good. I loved what I saw from Kyle Trask. He really took a step forward from last year. A lot of people are thinking that he could be this year's Joe Burrow, maybe not to the same level. I mean, he did some Joe Burrow things. He had six touchdowns in an SEC opener, which only Joe Burrow has done. So I don't think it's that. If it wasn't obvious already, I'm taking Florida.
Yeah, so
go Gators.
We're both going to go with Florida in this one, and I agree with you. I think that Florida's going to get the dub in this game. I'm not too concerned about it. I think Florida's dangerous. They're in the top 3 in the nation right now. TCU at Texas. Texas ranked in the nation's top 10 with Tom Herman. He used to be the coach at Houston. Him and I spent the entire time he was at Houston. I had the opportunity to speak with him, and I appreciate his time. TCU has some good moments, but they usually go like somewhere in the season, they grab a game or two, and then either they're competitive or they just drop right off. They do things against Ohio State, and then they disappear. What do you think about TCU at Texas in this one?
Texas played a tough one against Texas Tech last week. I mean, that was one of the most enjoyable games for me to watch. That was I believe it was a night game, and I was sitting there watching that game like, wow, this is interesting. But I definitely like Texas. I mean, I like what they have on offense. I mean, it's the Big 12, so you know they're not going to play defense. But, I mean, their offense is good enough to get the job done. I'm going with Texas.
I'm going with TCU. Spoiler, baby. It's a couple weeks into the season for them, and this is their perfect time to get that spoiler game that makes you think, are they good? And then they either blow it or they make things interesting. The Horned Frogs have come, I mean, in the last decade plus, they've come in, they've made some splashes, they've done some really cool things. They've been a dangerous team to go up against. I think they're going to get a win over Texas, who had to score 53 over Texas Tech. And one of the guys is their running backs coach, DeAndre Smith, a good friend of mine, 63-56 that game with Texas. I think TCU gets the win in this one because they see the weaknesses of Texas, and they're going to push that defense and do some good things. And sometimes TCU plays good defense. So I think if they can hold them down a little bit, make some moves, get a couple turnovers, I got TCU winning this game. Missouri,
they got to put up 40, though, to have any chance.
Listen, bring it. I'm ready for them Horned Frogs to go to work. Missouri at number 21, Tennessee. It's not often that we see Tennessee ranked in current times, but they are ranked in this game. What do you have for this one?
I liked the way Missouri played against Alabama last week. And Tennessee, well, they played a tough one against South Carolina, and South Carolina's not that good. So I'm going to take Missouri here because Missouri always seems to play spoiler in the SEC. Every year, the first year, Felipe Franks' year with Dan Mullen's first season, Missouri was one of the teams that beat Florida. And I went into that game thinking, oh, Missouri is going to be a cakewalk. They stink. And then Missouri goes and beats them. I'm like, oh, boy, that's not good. But, I mean, hey, that team was 9-3 that year. Missouri was good that year. Yeah. And I definitely think they played Alabama tough last week, so I'm going to go with Missouri.
Yeah, when I look at both of these teams, they only played one game, the SEC, coming in to the 2020 season last week. I didn't see a ton from either side. Neither offense impressed me by any stretch of the imagination. But I am going to go with Missouri on the road here in this game. I was thinking about picking Tennessee, but I mean, I'm not really sold on either offense, and I'm going to go with Mizzou. I think they're going to get a win on the road. And Tennessee is one of those teams where in recent history they get ranked, and then at some point in the season you ask why. And I think this might be one of those moments of why, and then Missouri might take their spot or get a spot in the top 25 because they beat out Tennessee on the road. NC State at number 24 ranked Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, mind you, is 3-0.
Pitt. I mean, what more else is there to say? They played well. They beat up on Syracuse, and I'm sorry to bring that up, but they played well that day.
I think we dropped the ball. Did we drop it? We dropped the video on that? Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good team. I mean, they're not going to really go anywhere in the ACC, but I mean, the ACC is essentially Clemson, and with this year Notre Dame being in there, and Notre Dame, and that's pretty
Miami
much it.
too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot about Miami. I was on Twitter this morning having a little bit of a rant. I'll get into that once we get to that team's game, but
okay.
It was interesting. But I mean, it's going to be basically a three horse race. So I mean, I'll take Pitt though.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pitt in this game as well. I'm not worried about it. NC State has not really shown me anything up to this point. Pittsburgh has had some snafus and not some great moments. They tried to give the game away to Syracuse that they won 21-10. But, I think they've done some good things. They've done enough. They beat a Louisville team, and so I'm going to give them some credit here and say that they win it. How about this? Pittsburgh has not been challenged on the road because they haven't had to play on the road. Pittsburgh has their first 4 games are all at home. So I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to play on the road for the rest of the year. I mean, looking at their schedule, Austin Peay at home, Syracuse at home, Louisville at home, NC State at home. Then they go BC on the road, Miami on the road, Notre Dame at home, FSU, Georgia Tech on the road, Virginia Tech at home, at Clemson. They got a tough schedule coming up. So we're going to see exactly who they are when they play Miami and Notre Dame back-to-back, and then they play Clemson in their last game of the regular season. I got Pittsburgh winning in this one. I don't see NC State as a threat. Next one up, East Carolina, team that I cover in the American Athletic, going up against Georgia State on the road. What do you have for this one?
Georgia State is one of the most fun teams to use in the team mode in NCAA football. They are the worst team in that game, and it's so much fun when you build that team up and win a national championship. I'm going to take Georgia State simply for that reason.
I'm going to take East Carolina, and I feel like East Carolina is going to do some good things. Obviously, they had to play UCF, who's one of the best teams, in my opinion, in the nation when it comes to, do you really want to play UCF? And I think a lot of people say no. So East Carolina, I'm going to give you a win over Georgia State, and I think there's going to be some good things coming from Mike Houston, who went into their last season as the new head coach of the Pirates. Arkansas State at Coastal Carolina, who, by the way, have already played the Campbell Fighting Camels, and they defeated them. What do you have for the Coastal Carolina game at home against Arkansas State?
Well, a friend of mine got drafted by the Miami Marlins named Zach McCambley, went to Coastal Carolina, pitched for 3 years. He was their Friday night starter last year. I've become a fan of Coastal Carolina through him, and literally, as we talked, the Marlins are up 5-1, and they might win a playoff game in a year where we didn't think they'd be in the playoffs. But for my buddy Zach, we're taking Coastal Carolina.
I'm taking Coastal Carolina as well, so we're in agreement on that. I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina. One of my buddies went out there, Austin Wilson, when he transferred from Syracuse. I'm just taking them in this game. They're at home, and I think they're going to get the dub. Baylor at West Virginia was a hard one for me to pick. What do you got?
I'm going to take Baylor. I mean, they're good every year. I mean, they had their first couple of games postponed, and they played well against Kansas. But then again, we all know that Kansas is not all that good.
Yeah.
But West Virginia had a tough one against Oklahoma State last week. But, I like Baylor in this one. They're a team that plays everybody tough in the Big 12, so I'll take Baylor.
I'm going to take West Virginia in this one. I'm a little bit more impressed by them than I am at this point of Baylor. Baylor doesn't have their head coach that obviously followed from Temple, Matt Rule, to Baylor. He's now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So I'm going to give West Virginia a slight edge in this game. Their old coach that had been there forever and a day, Dana Holgerson's in Houston right now. That was one of the games postponed that Baylor was supposed to play. I'm going to take West Virginia in a tight one here. UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio at UAB, a team that a school that got rid of their college program. Everybody freaked out, and they brought it back the next year, and the team won a bunch of games and went to a bowl game. UAB Blazers, one of the most fun stories to watch, and they have a dragon as their logo. What are your thoughts on this one?
I love the dragon logo. I'm going to take UAB. we're getting into some of the games here where I'm looking at these teams. I'm like, I know absolutely nobody on these teams. I have no idea if they're good or not. I mean, I'm just looking back at their schedule, see who they're playing. But I'll take UAB just for fun.
I'm going to take UAB as well in this matchup. I think UAB, I know they played Miami. Miami's a strong team. UAB, I think, is a force to be reckoned with because they're a bowl-caliber team. And ever since the game was taken away from them, they have fought. And I give them a lot of credit for that. They didn't get blown out. Put it to you like this. Florida State lost to Miami 52-10. They lost by 42 points. Biggest margin ever that Miami's beaten Florida State in the rivalry. UAB only lost to Miami 31-14. They lost by 17. So that says something about where UAB is and Florida State is right now. So I'm going to take them in this matchup and give them the dub. What about North Alabama at Liberty? Liberty, a team that will play Syracuse this season.
North Alabama has 4 games on their schedule. 4 games. Yeah. So they're going to have some motivation to play well. And they have Alabama in their name. Anytime you can be in the same state as one of the best college football programs in the country, you got to give them credit. I think their guys are going to come out playing hard. They only got 4 games. I'll take North Alabama.
I'm going to take Liberty in this game. Liberty, to me, is just, I mean, they're an independent school. UConn decided to not play this season, their first season as an independent, and Liberty decided to go, and they put together a full schedule. So shout out to them on that. They really want to play, and they got a lot of games on their schedule as an independent. So big ups to them. They want to be challenged, and I think they're going to win this game at home. Abilene Christian. We've seen some of their players go to the NFL. Abilene Christian at Army. Army has been ranked this year in the top 25. What do you have for this?
Army's usually sneaky up there, and I mean, Army, Navy, they're usually in there getting votes for the top 25, so they're a pretty solid team. I'll take Army.
I'm going to take Army in this game as well. I think they're going to get a victory. And the funny thing about this, with everything going on with Corona, the teams that I didn't worry about playing, Army, Air Force, and Navy, they're like, yeah, we fight wars. So I think we're good to
play football.
Right. I think we're good to play football. It would be kind of interesting if like they were the only ones that played. Like we were just watching a round robin of them all season long. So I'm going to pick Army in this one. Number 13, Texas A. This might be the game of the week. Number 13, Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher at number 2, Alabama. In my opinion, this will be the closest that Jimbo has played Alabama since joining the SEC. What do you think?
I agree with that. I think it's going to be a pretty tight game. Alabama clearly not on the same level as they've been in recent years, but they're still really, really good. I mean, Mac Jones has looked pretty solid for them at quarterback. But I'm going to take Alabama. It's hard to not pick Alabama. As much as I despise them being a Florida fan and an SEC fan, it's hard to pick against them. They're just so good every year.
Yeah, I'm going to take Alabama in a close one here, but I do think they'll get the victory. But I think it's going to be a good game, and I think that, this game, when it's in the deep 20s, I think we should really watch that. 28-23, 28-26, something like that. So I think this game is going to be good. North Carolina ranked in the nation's top 12 at Boston College. It is important to note that North Carolina's only played 1 game this season. They canceled their game against Charlotte, so they have not played in a long time. The last time that we saw them out there was September 12th. So the first game that they're going to play is in a new month of October. They only played 1 game in September. They've been off for a long time. BC is 2-0, but they had to come back against Texas State in their only non-conference game of the season. What do you think about this?
I think North Carolina is a solid team. I mean, they're ranked number 12 for a reason. I mean, as solid as Boston College has played, I think you got to go UNC here.
Yeah, I'm going with UNC in this game. Mac Brown has done a tremendous job. You wonder what it is about some coaches to come in and just immediately win and immediately have an effect on a team. He took a 2-3 win team a season, worst team in the ACC, and turned that number 14 of 14 and turned them into a team that almost beat Clemson, turned them into a team that's going to a bowl game in his first season that he was there, and then turning him into a top 25 respectable team and ranked 12th in the nation, only playing 1 game. And that was against Syracuse. It wasn't even a quality win at the time. So it's a lot to say about what the expectations are of Mac Brown and North Carolina. I like them in this one. South Florida at number 15 ranked Cincinnati.
I'm going to take Cincinnati. I mean, South Florida hasn't really shown much to me. They just got the doors blown off last week against not last week, week before against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's really good, but their only wins against the Citadel, and the Citadel's a FCS team, so I don't really expect too much from them. You got to go for Cincinnati here.
Yeah, I'm going for Cincinnati. South Florida is a year or two off from, getting to where they need to be. They're doing some good things in recruiting, I'm hearing, and Jeff Scott coming from the Dabo Swinney tree out of Clemson. There's good that's there, but this is Cincinnati. This is Luke Fickell. This is a coach that people want to poach, and I hope he stays in Cincinnati. And it tells the rest of the nation, listen, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to win here, and you're going to have to beat me here. They got blown out by Ohio State, but everybody else, they took it to last season. I love that he's there. I love that UCF and Josh Heupel are doing their thing. I love that Memphis they won with Justin Fuente. Then they won with Mike Norvell. Now they're winning in a new era. So, I think Memphis, to see what they were able to do with Justin Fuente, who really put them on the map, in my opinion, for arguably the first time ever. And then we see what Mike Norvell was able to do consistently. And when he left, they won their first AAC championship game. And before that, they were going up against UCF back-to-back years. Ryan Silverfield is there now, and they're ranked in the nation's top 25. So I think there's a lot of good to be had there. I'm going to go with Cincinnati. We're going to talk about Memphis in a minute, but I got Cincinnati in this one. Oklahoma State was pushed by a very, very strong defense of Tulsa. Tulsa wins 3 to 4 games a year under Philip Montgomery, but Tulsa is a team that pushes teams in the American, pushes teams in non-conference play. They are no slouch whatsoever. They don't have the wins at the end of the day, but to think that Philip Montgomery and this team are not a force to be reckoned with, then you're not paying attention. Oklahoma State won the game 16 to 7. They barely got out of it alive, and that's because Tulsa just couldn't figure out a way to score. What do you think about Oklahoma State, still ranked in the nation's top 25, which I don't think they should be. They're 17th, which I think is ridiculous, and they're playing at Kansas. What do you have for this one?
Well, give them credit. Their defense has been solid. They're not allowing a ton of points, which is something so uncharacteristic for Big 12 teams. I mean, they held West Virginia to 13 points, so they've allowed 20 points this year. Now, granted, Kansas is not good, so obviously I'm going to take Oklahoma State. But the fact that they have not really allowed a lot of points sticks with me a little bit. Granted, they haven't scored a ton either.
Yeah.
But you're going to win in the Big 12 if you stop teams from scoring. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I'm going to take Oklahoma State in this game as well. I think that they're going to be really pissed off about what happened against Tulsa, and they're going to take it to Kansas in this game. We've already stated Kansas not a strong team in the Big 12. Memphis ranks in the nation's top 25 at SMU. SMU has played 3 games this season. They postponed their game against TCU. They beat Texas State on the road. They beat North Texas on the road, and they beat Stephen F. Austin. So playing all these games in the state of Texas, they've scored 50, they've scored 65, they've scored 31. Granted, these are teams they should beat, but they're putting up points. SMU has done a great job under Sonny Dykes. Is there any chance that they get a win over Memphis, who's ranked in the nation's top 25, who's only played 1 game this season, and that was 37-24 over Arkansas State?
Give me SMU. Give me the Mustangs. I think they're scoring a lot of points, so I think they're going to push Memphis to their limits.
I think that SMU is going to play spoiler as well. I got them winning this game and covering both of these teams for about I would say at least 7 years right now. I'm going to go on SMU's side at home. Texas Tech, who definitely put up a big-time game against Texas, like we had mentioned, 63 points Texas had to score to get out of there. They allowed 56. Texas Tech getting better with that entire coaching staff that came over from Utah State just a couple seasons ago. Last season was their first season there. Like I said, my guy DeAndre Smith, he knows how to recruit, he knows how to bring in good running backs, and he knows how to coach them up. Texas Tech is at Kansas State. Kansas State's just stunned Oklahoma. What do you think about this one?
I do think Kansas State is a good football team, but when I was watching that Texas Tech-Texas game last week, I'm just thinking to myself, this team is a good football team. So I think it's going to be a tight one, but I'm going to take Texas Tech, and I think they break into the top 25 at the start of next week.
I think Texas Tech, if they get this win, should definitely be in the nation's top 25, especially with Oklahoma State getting in there, barely beating Tulsa. So I agree with you, and I'm taking Texas Tech. Charlotte, who had to cancel their game against the ACC that I had mentioned here earlier. Charlotte originally was supposed to have a game against North Carolina that got canceled. Charlotte will be on the road at Florida Atlantic. Willie Taggart trying his luck with his third team in Florida. He was the USF coach who helped to put him on the map, recruited Marlon Mack and Quentin Flowers. Then he went on to Oregon, had a winning record, but then he left for his dream job at Florida State. They didn't even give him 2 years there. Then Lane Kiffin left FAU for Ole Miss. Willie Taggart jumps back into Florida, doesn't have to leave or maybe even sell his house if he had one. He's at Florida Atlantic. What do you think about Florida Atlantic hosting this game against Charlotte?
Well, Florida Atlantic hasn't played a game either. They've had their first 2 games postponed as well, so there's really nothing to go on here. But I'll take, for the Florida bias, I guess I'll take Florida Atlantic. I mean, when you have a Lane Kiffin offense, granted not anymore, he's on Ole Miss. They're gonna have some guys laying over from that team, and I would imagine that there to be some solid players. I'll take FAU here.
Yeah, and FAU, looking at this game, I mean, looking at the season for FAU, they're not playing any ranked teams. They're playing Western Kentucky. They're playing University of Texas, San Antonio. They're playing FIU. They're playing Middle Tennessee, which I think is a good team. Scott Schaefer's a defensive coordinator, used to be the head coach and DC at Syracuse. So, I don't think there's a lot of challenges here. The Georgia Southern game as well as the USF game were both postponed, as you had spoken about. I think that Willie Taggart will get his first win, and finally getting to play a game, I think he'll get his first win at FAU in this matchup. Virginia Tech at Duke. Virginia Tech this season has not gotten to do much. They've only played 1 game. They defeated NC State. Duke is 0-3 after this game. They'll go on the road and they'll play at Syracuse. What do you have for this one?
Blue Devils, I think you should stick to basketball. Virginia Tech.
I'm going to pick Virginia Tech in this one as well. Duke is going to head in to Syracuse with an 0-4 record without a win in the ACC. Just really, really ugly. I'm going with Virginia Tech in this. Even though Duke has some players, notable players here, Duke, even as bad as they have been, 0-3 all their games in the ACC because Notre Dame counts for that. Chase Bryce is 3rd in the ACC in passing yards. Shaka Hayward is 1st in the ACC in tackles. And Victor Dimakije is 1st in the ACC with sacks with 4 in 3 games. I still think that Duke is going to lose this game at home. Next one up, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin played against Florida. Now he's got a shot to play against Kentucky. Will Lane Kiffin get his first win in his first 2 weeks in the SEC as the Ole Miss head coach?
I think he does. I think Ole Miss surprised a lot of people. I was very surprised with the way their offense played. Now, when I was watching that game, I'm trying to figure out, is Florida's defense just not that good anymore, or is Ole Miss's offense good? Right. And I kind of came to the conclusion that Ole Miss's offense is just good. I mean, a Lane Kiffin offense is usually pretty good. I mean, Kentucky struggled last week. They played Auburn. Granted, that's a tough game to begin with.
Yeah.
But I don't really think Kentucky is as good as people think. I definitely think that Ole Miss is going to give some SEC teams some trouble. So I'm going to take Ole Miss to win their first SEC game.
Yeah, Kentucky in a loss only put up 13 points. Ole Miss in a loss to Florida put up 35 in Lane Kiffin's first game. I think there's a lot of good to be had here. I'm picking Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin gets his first win in the SEC in his first 2 weeks. Next one up, Jacksonville State at Florida State. Jacksonville State, mind you folks, has not played a game this season. Jacksonville State does not have much on their schedule this season. Jacksonville State is in the Ohio Valley Conference. Their FIU game was postponed. They have Florida State, then they have Mercer, and then they will be playing against North Alabama. Those are the only games that they have on the schedule out of the Ohio Valley Conference. Yet, I still think it's dangerous to have them go into Tallahassee. We know Florida State's lost there. They lost there against Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's only win of the season, and an ACC, and their only win in the ACC. And Florida State's they're just doggone bad. And James Blackman's bad as a starting quarterback. Their backup quarterback was losing 20 yards, and then as he's falling down, throws an interception to Miami.
That was funny.
I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned about Florida State in this game. What do you have?
This is how bad I think Florida State is. I'm taking Jacksonville State. Florida State is so bad that I think they honestly could be the worst team in the state of Florida. They are bad. They are a very, very bad football team. And
Florida State is so
I don't
bad.
really.
What are you going to say?
I don't really see them coming out of it anytime soon. They're in a big time hole that they're going to need to do some recruiting if they want to have any chance of getting back to any sort of relevance.
Well, keep in mind that Florida State has lost some games at home that have been extremely questionable lately, and the reason why, part of the reason why they fired Willie Taggart. They lost at home against Louisiana Monroe last season in Tallahassee, 45-44 in overtime. So I'm going to go ahead and take Jacksonville State in this one as well. Florida State, it's ugly. I thought this was going to be the year that you turned it around and got in the top 5 in the ACC. Duke is making you look good, but Jacksonville State's going to make you look bad. I'm taking Jacksonville State. Western Kentucky at Middle Tennessee. What do you have for this one?
Before I get to that, where's the action? I need some action in my life. But I mean, that was a thing that we did at college, watching a Tuesday night or Thursday night MAC game. We didn't even know who these guys were. We just watched the games because it was fun, and we really loved the MACtion that we called it. But honestly, I mean, I'm looking at this game, and Middle Tennessee's 0-3. They got shut out by Army. And then on the other side, you look at Western Kentucky. They're not much better. This is going to be a real barn burner, but I guess I'll go with Western Kentucky.
You're going to go with Western Kentucky. I'm going to go with Middle Tennessee and Scott Schaefer over there to get a victory, their first victory, to get something looking good for Middle Tennessee this season. Navy and Air Force are going up against each other. What do you have for this?
It seems like whenever the military academies get to play each other, they just something crazy happens. Like they just go out and they play hard against whoever they're playing against. I mean, and I think Navy's that school that they're always a fringe top 25 team, and they're usually relatively good. So I'm going to take Navy. I mean, I'm a little biased because I have plenty of family members that have served in the Navy. So pretty much any Army-Navy game, I tend to go lean Navy. So I'll take Navy.
I'm going to take Navy, and my favorite name of a coach and somebody that I really appreciate our relationship on and off the field, Ken Niumatalolo. Let's go Navy. And
that's an awesome name.
It is a fantastic name. He's Hawaiian. Georgia Southern at Louisiana Monroe. What do you have for this?
I'm not going to really say much here. I mean, Georgia Southern is an okay team. They beat Campbell in week 1. I guess I'll take Georgia Southern. Why not? We'll see what happens.
I'm going to take Georgia Southern in this game as well. Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Every single season I feel like they're teams to watch, teams that found their way, to get in here and do some good things here and there. So I like it. Auburn, number 7 in the country. Georgia, number 4 in the country.
This is definitely the
Saturday night game in Georgia. What do you have for this one?
This is going to be a really good football game. But honestly, after watching how poorly Georgia played in that first half last week, I mean, they're going out against Arkansas. Arkansas is a team that's usually at the bottom of the SEC almost every year. And they scored 5 points in the first half, a safety and a field goal. Granted, they went out and put on a show in the second half. Whatever they said in the locker room must have stuck. But I don't think this Georgia team's that good. And for the sake of giving my Gators an easier path to the SEC title game, I'm going to go with Auburn here. I think they looked pretty good against Kentucky.
Yeah.
I think they're always a team that gives schools fits. They played LSU tough last year, and that was one of their highlights of their season last year. But I'm going to go Auburn. I think this is going to be a really good game, though.
I think that Georgia, even though they're at home, I think it's a danger zone for them. I like Auburn in this matchup. I don't know why Georgia's ranked number 4 in the country. I think they will fall, and I think they'll fall to Auburn in their second game of the season and inside of the SEC. Tulsa, who we mentioned before, played Oklahoma State close. They're at UCF. UCF, Dino Babers of Syracuse said, are they a lower team from a lower conference? Yes. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with a lot of things that are said about UCF nationally. They're just outside of the top 10. I don't understand how they're outside of the top 10 and some of the other teams are in there. But Tulsa's playing up against them. Tulsa's tough. Tulsa loves the challenges, but this game is in Orlando, in Central Florida. What do you have for this?
All right, this is going to be where I go on a little mini rant here. This is what I was talking about earlier with UCF. They, I guess, ran at some poll where they asked people who they thought the best team in the state of Florida was, and apparently UCF had 34% of the vote, and Florida had 33%. I think that is absolute crap. I could say different words, but for the sake of this being a child-friendly show, we're not going to use them. But the fact that people want to say that UCF is better than Florida or is better than Miami, who I believe both of those teams are better than UCF, they need to put their money where their mouth is. Florida flat out offered them a 2-for-1 last year, where it would be 2 games at the Swamp, 1 game at UCF, and UCF turned it down. And that was confirmed by the Florida athletic director last week. So the fact that they are not going to step up to the plate and play Florida, if they really want to show up and tell people that they're the best team in the state of Florida, go play Florida. Go play Miami. I mean, I'd say go play Florida State, but they'd probably kill Florida State because Florida State stinks. Yeah. But go play those 2 teams. Then maybe I'll give you some recognition. If you play them tough, yeah, maybe you're not better than Florida or Miami, but then I'll at least give you some credit. Play those teams first. As for the game, UCF is going to blow them out.
I got UCF in this matchup as well, and I said that UCF, in my opinion, obviously Miami's caught some fire, but in the early portion, like going into everything, I said in the state of Florida, I had Florida, UCF, Miami, then I had other teams falling beyond them there. Now I would say Florida, Miami, UCF, and then the rest of the teams. I got to put Miami at number 2, but UCF is a force to be reckoned. They're very good, but UCF is a force to be reckoned with, and I think there's a lot of reasons why teams won't play them. But I do agree that if Florida gave it to them, they needed to take it. They didn't want to take the same deal. Potentially didn't want to take the same deal. And this is just my thought. That USF had a 2-for-1 because they wanted it to be treated equally. Hey, you know what? If it's a 2-for-1 and you beat them the majority of the time, then you've proven yourself. You've done something great. Dan Mullen is a terrific coach in Florida, going to be fighting for a national championship in the college football playoff. So I think they should have taken the deal if the deal was there to take.
Yeah, you don't prove as much by beating a team at home. Like, if you really want to prove that you're the best team in the state of Florida, go beat Florida at the Swamp. Go beat Miami in Miami. That will give you all the credit that they deserve.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'd like to see it. It's unfortunate that we don't. I hope they change their mind. Arkansas and Mississippi State. Mississippi State's first game with their new head coach, Mike Leach, who was Gardner Minshew's coach at Washington State when he got him to come over from East Carolina, where I was covering, and knew Gardner Minshew's name before a lot of people knew his name. He goes over to Washington State, then he goes into the NFL. Now he's a starter with Jacksonville, and then Mike Leach comes to Mississippi State, gets a win over the reigning national champion LSU Tigers on the road, and the last time a reigning national champion lost their first game of the following season was 1998 when Michigan lost. Arkansas and Mississippi State. Mississippi State, after beating LSU, is only ranked 16th in the country. I think that's BS. What do you think about Mississippi State?
I think Mississippi State is for real. They are a good football team. They are going to give the SEC West some problems this year, but you got to look at their schedule. They've got some tough ones. I mean, you got Arkansas this week, which they're going to blow out Arkansas. I'll tell you that right now. But then you got to worry about Kentucky. Then you got to worry about Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Ole Miss, Missouri. Like, the SEC is so loaded this year that, granted, you have your 4 teams at the top with Florida, LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. Now, I don't know how much LSU is in that conversation anymore, considering how poorly they looked last week. But it's going to take a lot to overtake those 4 teams. But there's some good teams in the SEC. We talked about it with Texas A&M. That's a good program over there. And I think Mississippi State is really good. They're gonna blow out Arkansas, but they're gonna give some teams some problems.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State's going to be a dangerous team this year. I picked them to win in this game. Don't have to spend much on it. I think we've said a lot about Mississippi State. I got them going in this one. Oklahoma at Iowa State after losing to Kansas State.
Oklahoma's going to bounce back. I think they're a good team that just got off on the wrong foot last week. Kansas State played them really tough. I mean, I'll take Oklahoma.
I'm going to take
pretty
Oklahoma.
handily as well.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Oklahoma in this one. And then we look at Texas A&M played Vanderbilt. Vandy was on the road at Texas A&M, lost the game 17-12. Really bad start for Jimbo Fisher. Really good look for Vandy. They got to play LSU after LSU lost to Mississippi State. What do you have for this one?
LSU, I'm sorry. Vanderbilt has been the laughingstock of the SEC for I don't even know how many years right now. That is one game that when Florida plays them, I almost don't even feel like watching it because I know it's going to be a laugher. And I think that's exactly what this is going to be. As bad as LSU looked last week, Vanderbilt is not good. They're still in the basement of the SEC. It's LSU by 40. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I got LSU in this game on the road at Vanderbilt as well. Southern Miss at North Texas.
Southern Miss is a team that I can see winning some games. Now, granted, they haven't looked good so far, but, I just kind of like Southern Miss. I think they're a team that could be a spoiler in this one. So,
Tulane
North Texas.
Tulane got them 66-24 at home in Southern Miss.
Well, you could say the same thing. This could be, I guess, I don't really want to say a trap game because it's still early in the season, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to take Southern Miss. I have a feeling with that one.
I'm going to agree with you. And as much as they looked bad against Tulane and they haven't won a game yet, I have Southern Miss in this matchup winning it. Virginia at Clemson, the last game of this week. Yeah, that's
don't even need to talk about that one.
Clemson. And Trevor Lawrence, mind you, he hasn't had to do much. He's 30 of 37 through 2 games this season. It looks like one game stats because he only threw 9 passes and was 8 for 9 against the Citadel in their second game. They beat Wake Forest before that, 37-13. So, obviously Travis Etienne and some of these guys at Trevor Lawrence, their numbers are going to increase as we see them. They're still ranked number 1 in the country, even though they haven't had to do much. The game was way out of hand in the first half at 40-something to nothing against the Citadel. So I'm not worried about that. Outside of that, NBA Finals, Miami's representing the East, and representing the West, we have the Lakers. I picked the Lakers against the Raptors before the restart even happened. I said Lakers, Raptors, Lakers winning a championship. So I'm sticking with the Lakers on my side. What do you have for this?
I'll take the Heat. I always have not liked the way LeBron handles himself with the GOAT talks because he tries to go out and say that he's better than Michael Jordan, and I think if he would just let his game speak for himself, that maybe he would actually get more respect in that regard. But I think Jimmy Butler and the Heat looked pretty good in their series against the Celtics.
Yeah.
I'll go Miami mostly because I don't want to see LeBron win another championship because I want to see Michael Jordan secure the GOAT with LeBron going 3-7 in the finals. But for that reason, maybe not so much for that reason. I think the Heat are a good team, so I'll take the Heat.
Yeah, I would love to see the Heat win, but I'm going to stick with what I said initially, and I'm going to stick with the Lakers. It makes me want to pull a little bit in my mouth, but I'm going to pick the Lakers in this one. I don't like the way that LeBron puts his teams together, but I do respect his game. I respect Anthony Davis. I think that this, Caruso and company, I think that, Kyle Kuzma, it's a dangerous team, but Jimmy Butler and the crew in Miami, I'd love to see you do it with Pat Riley. Pat Riley's connected to the Lakers and to the Heat. We know that the Heat won before LeBron came there. We also know that the Heat gave LeBron his first championship. So this is ironic, kind of cool, and amazing. And 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year are both in the finals, which is really interesting to see. Major League Baseball playoffs, bring us through. Who do you have from the beginning to end? Run us through your bracket as we just have a couple more minutes here on the show, and then I'll run you through mine.
All right. Well, I did make picks before the postseason. There is one series that is over and one that is going to be over shortly as the Rays are beating up on the Blue Jays in Game 2 of that series. So start in the American League, I went the Rays, I took the Yankees, I took the Twins, who really couldn't get out of their own way, and they made some pretty bad mistakes defensively and running the bases that really cost them the series. They beat the Trash Cans beat them. Oh wait, did I say Trash Cans? I mean the Astros. And then I had the White Sox in the other game, and the A's are beating the White Sox right now, so that series could be going to a third game. Lucas Giolito absolutely shoved in Game 1 for the White Sox. I took the White Sox there. National League, the Brewers had no business being in the playoffs, so I had the Dodgers. I took the Padres. I'm a big Marlins fan for the playoffs. I mean, the Marlins, yes, they're an NL East team. Yes, they are in the playoffs, and my Mets are not. But the Marlins making a deep run would be such an amazing story that I want to be all in on the Marlins train, and I'm going to take and I took the Marlins. Braves Reds, that game 1 was an unbelievable game. That game started at noon today and didn't end until, I don't even think we started recording at about 4:40ish. That game was still going on. That game was almost 5 hours old, and the Braves won it in, I believe it was 13 or 14 innings. I don't remember. I had it up on the TV. But I've been obviously paying more attention to this. I'm just peeking up every once in a while. But yeah, as I say that, the A's and White Sox, the A's are up 5-2 in the top of the ninth. So that game will probably be going to a third game.
13 innings, 1-0.
13, okay. I had the Braves in that series. I mean, Braves haven't won a playoff series since, I believe, 2001, I think is what they said. But as good as I think this Reds rotation is, they got 3 aces they can send out there with Trevor Bauer, who absolutely shoved today, 7 2/3, 12 strikeouts, easily the favorite for the National League Cy Young Award. Going out there, you have Louis Castillo in Game 2, probably Sonny Gray Game 3 if need be. I took the Braves, but I think the Reds are going to play them tough. I do think that series goes 3. As for the division series, it was Rays-Yankees. I had the Yankees from day 1 making the World Series. I had to stick with the Yankees. I think the Rays are a really good team, and they have a lot of interesting pieces, but I do think the Yankees are going to get over that hump and beat the Rays. I originally had White Sox Twins, and I had the White Sox winning in that series. Their pitching staff is really good. Jose Abreu leading that lineup, leading the league in RBIs and second in the league in home runs. That's a pretty good middle of your lineup. You got Eloy Jimenez, you got Louis Robert, Yohan Moncada. That lineup's really good. And then the rotation, Lucas Giolito, as I said, he shoved in Game 1 of the wild card series. He's a great pitcher. And then you got Dane Dunning, you got Dallas Keuchel, who surprisingly didn't pitch all that well today for the White Sox, but he had a sub-2 ERA for the season, so he's really good. I had the White Sox in that series. Dodgers-Padres in the National League Division Series. The Dodgers are just so much better than every other team in baseball. I can talk about this for hours, but I'll talk more about the Dodgers as we keep going. But Dodgers over the Padres. And then Marlins-Braves. This is where it ends for the Marlins. They're not going to beat the Braves. The Braves lineup is just so loaded. Between Acuna and Freeman and Albies, that lineup is so deep and so good. So I had the Braves going to play the Dodgers. ALCS, Yankees, White Sox. I'm sticking with the Yankees. I was really high on the White Sox from day 1 this year, but I think the White Sox run will end. So I think the Yankees will beat them there and go to the World Series. And I think it's going to be Yankees-Dodgers, as the Dodgers will take care of the Braves pretty handily. And then Yankees-Dodgers in the World Series. I said I would get into it before, and I will now because I can actually talk about it more. The Dodgers are far and away the best team in baseball, and it is not close. Anybody who tries to make an argument that the Yankees are better than the Dodgers or that the Braves are better than the Dodgers, just stop it. The Dodgers are so much better than everybody else. They have the best lineup in baseball. They have the best rotation in baseball. They have one of the best bullpens in baseball. They have unbelievable defense out there in the field. So their collective lineup, no other team in baseball can say they have 2 MVPs in their batting order between Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger. And Cody Bellinger didn't even play well this year. The Dodgers won 43 games, and got subpar performances from Cody Bellinger, from Max Muncy. Justin Turner was okay, but he wasn't quite on the same level as he usually is.
Yeah.
And they had some guys that struggled, but then they had other guys that stepped up. You had Corey Seager, who had an unbelievable year, who's going to be in the MVP race. You had Mookie Betts, who had another MVP caliber season. And then the rotation, Clayton Kershaw is back to doing Clayton Kershaw things. Walker Buehler was hurt for a while, but he's still a great pitcher. Dustin May, who was thrown into pitching on opening day, pitched absolutely awesome this year for the Dodgers, sub-3 ERA. You've got, let's see, Julio Urias, and then you've got, who's the last guy I'm thinking of? I literally have him in fantasy. Tony Gonsolin. He pitched well for the Dodgers this year, so they could throw any of those 5 guys out there and win games. So I picked the Dodgers. I picked the Dodgers from day one. I know it's kind of a cop-out pick, but the Dodgers are just so much better than everybody else that I don't even think it's close. I mean, I think they win. It's going to be 5 or 6 games. I don't think it goes the distance. They're not going to sweep them either. But give me the Dodgers and let's say 6.
I love seeing the Tampa Bay Rays #1. I don't think anybody expected that. I love seeing the Toronto Blue Jays make it. I wish they didn't have to play each other as the Blue Jays made it as number 8. So for me, going through this, I picked Tampa Bay over Toronto. I picked the Yankees to win their series here. I don't think that the Yankees were going to have too much of a struggle over the Indians and whatnot. I had Houston over the Twins. It pained me to do that, but I just feel like Houston's going to do something in these playoffs, and it's going to continue to piss people off. And then I had the A's over the Sox on that side, as we started things off for the AL. In the NL, obviously I picked the Dodgers, to win theirs over the Brewers. I had the Padres, which was a tough one for me, the Padres over the St. Louis Cardinals. I picked the Marlins like you. I'm excited about it. My first foul ball that I ever got was at a Marlins practice game where the Manatees were playing. So I'm going to pick the Marlins in this one over the Cubs. And then I had the Braves over the Cincinnati Reds. And then coming back into it, I picked in the Rays and Yankees. I'd love to see the Rays do it. I also have a soft spot because of my dad and my grandfather for the Yankees. I picked the Yankees in this one. I picked the Astros over the A's. And then on the other side, I picked the Dodgers over the Padres. And I picked the Marlins over the Braves because I think...
I love that.
I think they're going to have a little bit of a Cinderella. I do. But that'll run out eventually. Yankees over the Astros. As the Yankees, you're going to, people love them, people hate them. But when they beat the Astros, everybody's going to love them in that moment. And so the Yankees on one side, the Dodgers on the other over the Marlins. As that Cinderella run will come to an end, I have the Yankees and the Dodgers in the World Series, as you do. And I have the Dodgers ultimately winning the World Series, which I don't think is a cop-out. I think people went into the season believing that this was the best team in baseball, and I think they're going to show that they are the best team in baseball. So with that being said,
you can't go wrong with the Dodgers. They're just so good.
So it's DT, and if for some reason the Yankees win, I think that's a feel-good story. So it's DT and Murphy in our first ever broadcast as a child to come from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and inside of the Dan Tortora Broadcast Media family. DT and Murphy make the picks. We gave you everything for NFL Week 4, everything for college football Week 5, and I can promise you that I believe that probably nobody else has done all of the games in college football Week 5. We told you who we think will win the NBA Finals. We differed on that with the Lakers for me and the Heat for Brendan Murphy. And we both have the Yankees-Dodgers. We gave you our entire field for the MLB postseason. We both have Yankees-Dodgers, and we both have the Dodgers at the end of it. Murph, as always, I appreciate you, sir, and I look forward to talking with you as we will do this thing once a week and get it popping. DT and Murphy make the picks. We made them. And if yours are different than ours, write in. Let us know. Write on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Write it on facebook.com/livenowdt. Or write it in when we share it on our social media. Let us know what you're thinking. Facebook at wakeupcalldt, Twitter at calldt, and Instagram at wakeupcall_dt. As always, my good sir, I appreciate you.
Pleasure as always.